This was one of the most talked about college football weekends going into the weekend of all time, along with the MLB playoffs, along with week six in the National Football League. And boy, did it deliver. LSU upsetting Ole Miss, Alabama almost losing to South Carolina. They had that huge 14-0 lead. South Carolina came back, put 19 straight on them. Jalen Milroe had to rally the troops. We had Texas and the Red River rivalry dismantling Oklahoma. Again, I've been saying it all season long. I think Texas, Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, doesn't matter. They have the deepest receiving core. They have the deepest offensive line. They have a great offensive coach and Steve Sarkisian. They're physical up front on both sides of the football. Their defense flies around. I think Texas is Michigan from a year ago. What an incredible comeback by Penn State against USC. USC going up there at home in the Coliseum, coming off a couple of bad losses. Lincoln Riley getting Miller Moss going. USC had some impressive wins early. Their defense was impressive early in the season. Then their lack of tackling, their ability to cover, shut up late. Big Ten teams that have not been used to traveling the country have struggled this year on the road. And of course, James Franklin's team ended up pulling that out in overtime. Now, when it comes to Ohio State, Oregon, what a phenomenal football game that was. That may have been the best college football game this year outside of Georgia, Alabama. I got to tell you, again, in these last 2, 3 weeks, I have never watched more college football regular season in my life. We are finally getting to conference play. We are finally getting to see the likes of Penn State-USC. We are getting to see Ohio State, Oregon. We are getting to see Georgia, Texas this weekend, where I think, again, Texas is the best team in the country. We have Tennessee, who nearly lost in overtime this past week. Now, they host Alabama, who, again, has not played well in the last couple of weeks. That's a pivotal game that could decide who plays in the SEC championship game. So when I watch all these teams, again, I think college football, and I talked about this last week with Sean Fitzgerald, who said that, he's going to miss the regionalism of college football. I don't miss the regionalism of college football, not one bit. In my opinion, I believe that regionalism is what held down the sport. I think the fact that you get Big Ten action starting at 9 a.m. Pacific out there with big noon kickoff with Fox, and the last game could kick off somewhere around 7:30, 8 p.m., or even later, if Oregon or somebody like that has a West Coast game that starts at 6 p.m. Pacific. It's a full day, coast to coast, of college football is what I really do endure about it. But again, I thought Ohio State, Oregon, number two, number three in the country. I thought Oregon got a big boost at home. The quarterback Gabriel, obviously the transfer, the lefty. I thought he played a good game, not a great game. What I really wanted to see is, Ohio State in the Ryan Day era these past few years. They've been bullied around by Michigan in big games. They barely beat Notre Dame last year in a big game. These primetime NBC, CBS at 3:30, they got up to a slow start last week at home against Iowa. I wanted to see how Ohio State would come out, and this was, really guns a-blazing. First half, everybody back and forth. There was a complete shootout. And then in the end, I thought Gabriel outplayed Will Howard in the second half. That Jeremiah Smith, the young freshman from Ohio State, true freshman, is a great receiver. He, I think, is going to go on to have a Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson-esque type career at Ohio State before he goes to the National Football League. But Will Howard, well, he does bring some mobility, and I do find it interesting that Chip Kelly, who is now Ohio State's offensive coordinator, looks like he's not going as much tempo as what he did at Oregon when he was with the Eagles, when he was with the Niners, when he was with UCLA, adapting more under center, running the football. In the end, I think Will Howard's a fine player. Again, I think Ohio State defensively in these big games are giving them a lot of plays in the passing game. They're not getting pressure on the quarterback. And that is one of the biggest themes that I have found this year across college football, again, outside of Texas. Whether it is a good team like a Penn State, whether it is an Oregon who struggled early in the season, whether it is with a Cam Ward at Miami, Florida, an Ole Miss, Alabama, they seem to be going in spurts. And as I talked about last week, whether it is the NIL, whether it is the transfer portal, whether it is just teams getting better, it does seem like now that the talent in college football is spread around. The teams with seniors are doing extremely well because they have camaraderie. They have played together for 3, 4 years. These teams that are just changing people over in the transfer portal. And again, I don't believe in Clemson at all. Yes, they destroyed a bad football team on Saturday. I don't think Clemson's, remotely close to a Georgia, remotely close to an Alabama. I think what we're seeing is, though, you don't need all 5 stars to win a national championship anymore. You need a very good football team that's played together for years. And college football has never been more balanced. And I do think it's a benefit here for both Oregon, for Ohio State, for Texas to go up against Georgia on Saturday, which I cannot wait for. Texas is hosting Georgia. They're only favored by 3.5. I don't know about that again. I don't know Georgia is going to be able to stop Texas, and I don't think Texas would give up the lead the way that Alabama has done. So I like Texas in that game. Again, very entertaining weekend. There's a lot of good college football out there, folks. Excuse me. There is more good college football out there right now than we've ever had, in my opinion, before in our lifetime. Thoroughly enjoying it. I think at the end, this was a great game. I think Ohio State and Oregon do have a chance to meet again. Again, I think Ohio State has better players. I think Oregon, by a slight margin, as the better quarterback, was not impressed by Will Howard at all. That was my biggest takeaway. I think Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, again, best quarterback, duo in the country. Jalen Milroe, I thought at times played a great game Saturday, at times struggled. It seems like Kalen DeVore's offense has sort of gone in sinks where they're really hot. They can put up as many points they want. And then there's times where they sort of go into a lull. And we've seen this trend with Alabama this year where they've struggled in second halves. It doesn't seem like defensively they're making adjustments. So that could be a concern for Alabama fans. The fact that you did not bounce back for that loss against Vanderbilt and hammer South Carolina. Tennessee, they boat roast people the first few weeks. They're struggling over the last 2 weeks. And again, Georgia, who is starting to put up points, but their defense is showing some oil leaks in it as well. So very interesting. I think it's going to be another great weekend of college football. I can't wait to see how this all shakes out in the end. It used to be the college football season really did not start until the committee put out their rankings, which was again always the top 4 teams. We would debate about it. Now it's going to be 12 teams, and it's going to be really interesting. Some of these teams with losses, and whoever goes down between Alabama and Tennessee, and whoever, if Georgia goes down, if their 2 losses are to Texas and Alabama, where does the committee put them? So that's what I'm looking forward to this week in college football. Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.